Welcome to another episode of Pakistani Profile. My guest for today is the Regional Director Asia at IUCN. I have with me Ms. Aban Kabraji. Hello, ma'am.
Hello.
Thank you so much for being part of our show and taking time from your busy schedule. Right, ma'am, we're going to talk about your personal life. Initially, tell me more about your childhood. What education have you taken? Because not a lot of people know about your childhood and they know more about your profile as an
Okay, my childhood was spent mostly in Quetta, where the family has been for more than a century. I went to school there, grew up there. This was in the 60s and 70s. I was at school all the way through till my O levels, at which point I moved to the Karachi Grammar School in Karachi, did my A levels, then went on to university in the UK, studied biology, went back to Quetta to work in the pharmaceutical industry, which was the family business, and then moved over to Karachi again and went into the world of environment and conservation.
Right, ma'am, how difficult was it to move out of Quetta and going back to UK and then coming back to that environment, because there was a lot of difference in the environment then?
A tremendous difference, and Quetta in the 60s and 70s, which was my childhood, was not Quetta as you see it today. In many ways, one was, as a child, to be growing up in the Pakistan of the 60s and 70s was probably, and possibly even the 50s, was probably in many ways the best time of Pakistan. I think most importantly, that generation, my generation, grew up not only with the sense that the country was bound to progress, things were bound to get better, and that the world we lived in was secure. It was a world of opportunity. It was a world of relatively tranquility and peace. I grew up in a Quetta where I used to, as a child, think nothing of walking out of the gate of our house and down the road and walking to school, which was about half a mile away. And I remember coming back from school, and this was a girls' school, a convent, and opposite was a grammar school, a boys' school. And we used to walk to school and sometimes back from school, just a group of girls along the road, you know, and not a word, not a thought. Our parents never used to worry about anything.
Because it was so safe and secure.
It was completely safe. We used to go on cycle rides, and this was not just Quetta, this was all the cities of Pakistan. Until the start of the Afghan-Russian wars in the mid-70s, and the policy that was, that was basically Ziaul Haq, that essentially involved us in those wars. Pakistan was a very, very different country. So my recollection of childhood and the way I describe it to my children is almost as if, well, it was another country.
It was, sure.
And so in many ways, I suppose my childhood in Quetta bears no comparison to the state of Quetta today, or in fact to the state of the country or the state of any of the cities of Pakistan. And that's a great shame, because your generation has missed out on knowing a country that we all had great hopes, great pride, and great belief in its future.
I think that's the story that we've been told by all the parents, because they have seen a completely different country as to what we are looking at right now.
I suppose, though, the only point one would say that because one saw that kind of Pakistan, my generation fervently believes that it can come back. That in a sense the last 30 years has been an accident of history. That the roots are still there, that can still be nurtured. We can still go back to how it used to be. Obviously not in the same way, because the world has changed, but certainly a country that is stable, that is secure, where people have hope, where you can look to the future with a sense of optimism. I think that is certainly something that we would all like to see again, and I would like to see again in my own lifetime. So, in a sense, reflecting back on childhood, inevitably now, for most Pakistanis of my generation, also brings an acute sense of what have we lost.
So you can see the difference.
Absolutely,
right?
absolutely. And I mean what I grew up with in Quetta and then in Karachi. And going back to your question where you said, you know, how did it feel? Well, obviously, you know, it was a very, very different world, because the world of university in UK or even the world of school in Karachi was a very, very much more sophisticated world than the rather provincial, backward, safe, secure, but fairly boring world of the provinces.
Yeah.
And Quetta was very much a backwater in many ways.
Right.
But it, as I said, it was a foundation that has stood me well in life.
It has. Right, ma'am, talking about your career, you chose to become an environmentalist. You started working with WWF and then you joined IUCN in the year '88. How has the experience been, and what was the main reason behind choosing this as a career?
Well, you know, I trained as a biologist, but and the idea was that I would work in the family business, which I did for a number of years until I got married and moved to Karachi. And I could have continued in that field. But I was always interested in conservation, in animals, in, you know, life systems, in nature. And so there was a natural drawing to the possibility of any work in that area.
Right.
At that point, WWF wanted to set up a program in Karachi, and the Sindh government was interested in a project which WWF was funding on the sea turtles. Okay. That come up on the beaches of Sandspit and Hawke's Bay. So basically that convergence, WWF funding that project through the Sindh government, and they were looking for a biologist. So they asked me to come and work with them, which I did. So I worked with the government for 5 years. And it's only after working with them that then WWF wanted me to come and start opening their office. And that office then was jointly opened and run by WWF and IUCN.
Right.
And IUCN is a membership organization which has governments and non-governmental organizations as members, and it's a science-based organization. Okay. And so WWF and IUCN both began to use me for different things. And eventually the IUCN program grew very, very fast, and they asked me to come over. Right. But let me also tell you a little bit, since you're asking about background. While I worked on the environment in the 70s and the 80s, I also worked very much with the women's movement in Pakistan.
Right.
And so I did a lot of work on women's development issues. And that has also interwoven in, particularly in the early stages of my career.
Right.
And then again, it became a case of having to make a choice, because either you go into one world if you want to do it professionally, or the other. So I chose the world of environment. But the whole aspect of women and development and gender. But you did
continue working parallel.
I continue in parallel, and wherever possible I try and bring it in to the work of our programs of IUCN in Asia now.
Okay.